Welcome to the 700 Club. Her name is Dorothy, and she's not just in Kansas. This Thanksgiving storm is set to wreak holiday havoc in 20 states. And meanwhile, a huge Pacific storm is on its way that meteorologists say could be historic. The big question, will the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloons be grounded due to high winds? Here's Gary Lane.
It's not only in Kansas, Toto. Winter Storm Dorothy spread through the Rockies Monday and is now heading into the central U.S., making transportation difficult for Thanksgiving holiday travelers. Swakilia Brown was stranded in Kansas City as she traveled by bus from Atlanta to Denver.
Due to Winter Storm Dorothy in Colorado, routes have been suspended between Denver, Colorado and Kansas City, Missouri.
I don't know anybody here. I don't have any money.
Rush hour, a mess in Denver Monday night. A winter storm advisory is in place until Tuesday evening, with up to 16 inches of snow expected in some places. That would make it the biggest snowstorm to hit the area in 3 years. So far, the airlines canceled more than 450 flights at Denver Airport. 200,000 people are expected to travel through there today. Nationwide, a record 51 million people will be traveling this Thanksgiving holiday. That's the highest number in 12 years. Meanwhile, in the Midwest, people are preparing for the worst.
I've got chains for my car. So
we have plenty of wine.
Lots of wine, yeah, and a bulldozer.
In California, high winds are fueling fires like this one above the mountains of Santa Barbara and forcing evacuations. Another big Pacific Coast storm, one that meteorologists are calling possibly historic, is on its way. Hurricane-force winds are expected in Northern California and Oregon later tonight. And on the East Coast in New York City, final rehearsals are underway for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Wind gusts are expected to reach 40 miles per hour Thanksgiving Day and could ground many of these popular balloons. If so, it would be the first time since 1971. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Thanks, Gary. Well, with us now is Weather Bell Chief Meteorologist Joe Bastardi. He's also the author of a book, The Climate Chronicles, Inconvenient Revelations You Won't Hear from Al Gore. Joe, it's nice to see you again. Hey, the weather warmed up, and then it's gotten so cold. Tell me what's going on.
Well, we've got a major winter weather pattern for the United States, and it's interesting, ironic, if you want to call it that this is named Dorothy, because there's also going to be some severe weather with it across Arkansas into Missouri today. But this first storm lifts up. It's Denver to Duluth blizzard. Really is what's going to happen. Lincoln, Nebraska are going to get it quite a bit. Northwest Iowa, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And then that cuts across the lakes and turns east-southeastward off New England. And the colder air comes into the northeastern part of the United States and even down the coast toward Virginia Beach on Thanksgiving Day. And that's why that strong north wind in New York City may cause some problems with the Macy's Day Parade. Of course, you get a big back workout and hip workout trying to hold those balloons. Bart Simpson will wind up over Sandy Hook, New Jersey or something like that. But what happens after that is really fascinating, because this storm is coming into California. This storm comes flying in about the same path, starts dumping snow in the same area Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Day. It lifts up into the northern plains, and then it's blocked. And when it's blocked, it starts sliding east-southeastward, winds up off the mid-Atlantic coast Monday morning. And this means, folks, that the Northeast, north of the Mason-Dixon line, the Great Lakes, these areas, the big travel problems are going to be over the weekend. In fact, I was talking yesterday about, a lot of big football games in the Big Ten on Saturday, for instance, from Minnesota, Wisconsin, all the way over to Ohio State, Michigan, and all those may be impacted by snow, sleet, freezing rain. And then that storm, this will be a first storm of the season with accumulating snow and ice down to Philadelphia, New York City, Boston, Providence, coming in for Saturday night and Sunday. So, and that's just going to, the return trips. We got to be also concerned about the return trips with the flying and the traveling may really be hampered in the Northeast over the weekend. So just a very, very active weather pattern. I remember the 71 situation, by the way. I was only a junior in high school. I was heartbroken because we got rain where I was in Atlantic City, but there was a big Thanksgiving Day snowstorm all over the place back inland across Pennsylvania and New York State.
Is there any relief in sight that you see? It sounds like it's pretty grim for the next few days.
Well, it's interesting, Pastor, that you could see this coming as plain as the nose of my Italian face over here, because this pattern is something that is being set up by things that are going on in other areas of the world. And so when we look down the road for the winter season, we've been since the summertime predicting a very active winter season across the United States. Lots of shots of cold air. So you're seeing this beginning to start. November was a month that was the computer models, the climate models said it was going to be real warm, actually turned out to be much colder than normal across the United States. They're having a real tough time handling this. So you get the old dogs like me. I'm 64 now. I guess that's not old. That's the new 40. But what happens is we go back and look at patterns that are similar to this, and you can see the similarities. And when you see those similarities, you use them and you get a chance to get a jump on the weather, and that's what we're trying to do.
Joe, you've written a book about climate change, things that Al Gore wouldn't tell you. Is climate change causing all this stuff? Is there something about the global warming? What do you believe?
The climate always changes. It's kind of interesting. Remember when Dorian was coming along? People say, well, it's miraculous it weakened coming off the Bahamas. Guys like me, and this is what the weather teaches you, folks. It teaches you humility, and you understand that it's in God's hands. Every day, no matter what the weather, it's a beautiful day in Virginia Beach today. That in and of itself is a miracle, too. So the little things and the big things are, they're in the same category as far as the overall picture. But what's happening today is people are weaponizing the weather. And when they weaponize it, for instance, do you think that if it were 1954, do you think we'd have all the video cameras out in Colorado and all these things going on? But we see everything now. We know everything now. And so what goes on is these people are saying, this is the worst ever. And you get guys like me go, no, it's not. Look at this storm. Look at that storm. You take the hurricane season, for instance. We had 19 named storms. Wow. About 8 or 9 of them may never have been named back in the 1950s because they were out in the middle of nowhere. And the hurricanes, for instance, the average intensity of the storms have fallen from what we call the ACE index of 12 per storm, 1950 to 1961, to under 9 per storm in the last 12 years. And even this year with Dorian, it would only average 7 points per storm. So what I'm trying to say is this is all part of a continuum. And what you see today, you got to understand the weather's a movie, not a snapshot. This scene that you see today has been set up for time eternal. And of course, we do look at what's going on now and say, well, it's getting a little bit warmer now. It was colder then. But we put it in perspective, and perspective teaches us history can solve the mystery.
Joe, thank you. Well, we'll wait for history to solve it. In the meantime, the climate change people, if you're a climate change denier, they don't have any, you can't even teach in the schools today because it's become an item of faith. Well, in other news, I have said strongly on this program that there will be no impeachment, that the Democrats don't dare to do it. Well, I'm perhaps being proven correct now. House Democrats are starting to crack. Polls show support for impeachment is waning, and one representative is now breaking ranks. John Jessup has more on that story.
Thanks, Pat. Michigan Representative Brenda Lawrence originally supported the impeachment inquiry. Now she's shifting gears, calling for a resolution to censure the president. Congresswoman Lawrence said with the election so close, she sees no value in impeachment. But she does believe it's important for the House to go on record labeling Mr. Trump's actions as wrong. Lawrence is from a safe Democratic district in eastern Detroit. Her move could lead vulnerable Democrats in swing districts to come out against impeachment. This, Pat, as recent surveys show more independent and Democratic voters are less supportive of impeachment after the proceedings.
I heard yesterday of a poll that indicated that the majority of people in America would be inclined to vote against somebody who was in favor of impeachment. And so Democrats in vulnerable seats will be very reluctant to go on record. Nancy Pelosi is a brilliant, brilliant politician. Her father was the political boss of Baltimore some years ago, and she knows how to count, and she knows what's the right thing. And it seems like to me Nancy Pelosi does not want a real vote. She'll let Adam Schiff and those guys, blow a vote against the president. But in terms of actually having a head count for impeachment, I don't think it's going to happen. But we'll see. I may be wrong, but we'll see what happens. John?
Pat, turning overseas, the leader of Iran's Revolutionary Guard is blaming America for recent anti-government protests and threatening to retaliate. Addressing thousands of government supporters, General Hossein Salami calls the rising gas prices a pretext for attacks on his nation. Referring to the United States and his allies, he said, quote, "If you cross our red line, we will destroy you." Meanwhile, Amnesty International says it has clear evidence that Iranian security forces used deadly force against unarmed protesters and says the number of known dead now stands at 143. Pat?
Thanks, John. As I have said many times, and it's true, the people of Iran despise the mullahs. They despise them. And so this small group of fanatic leaders is sitting on top of a volcano. And I think we should do everything in our power as a nation to encourage a regime change in Iran. It will come. The people do want to be free of this theocratic monstrosity that has been placed upon them. And I believe if Mike Pompeo and his troops stand firm, Iran is going to, we will see a collapse of that government. We certainly hope so. John?
Pat, Turkey is risking new sanctions from the United States by testing radar that goes with its Russian-made air defense system against American-made warplanes. According to an online publication called The Drive, Turkey is using the F-16 Viper and F-4 Phantom fighters it purchased from the United States to test the capabilities of S-400 surface-to-air missile system it bought from Russia. That could give the Russians insight into defending against U.S. warplanes. Congress and the Trump administration have made it clear they do not approve of Turkey buying Russian-made weapons. And, Pat, that could lead to more sanctions.
It's a tough situation. We've got 25 tactical nukes in Turkey, and we've already undermined our strong allies up there. And Erdogan was visiting the White House, and the president called him a good guy. And he's sure the people love him. They don't love any such thing. He is a vicious dictator. And the fact that he's now siding up to the Russians, that border zone is now a feeding ground for ISIS, for radicals. And the Turks have violated every promise they made. And Erdogan is a thug. He wants to be the new caliphate. He wants to control a vast swath of land, and he's going to, do whatever it takes to make that a fact. We need to recognize who he is, and the fact that we invited him to the White House, and the president said he's a good guy. The people do not like Erdogan, and we've got several dictators that we need to stand up against them. Wendy?
Our president seems to overlook some of those things in order to have some sort of make deals and, do other things.
He seems to cozy up to dictators. I don't know, Kim Jong-un.
I think he likes the challenge. It's a challenge because nobody else has been able to do it. No one else ever met with Kim Jong-un until him. I think he likes to be the first.
Well, I would like him to be the first of something else.